Hey crew, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun scroll saw project video, have a nice, beautiful Native American portrait. It's going to be very tedious to cut out, but as always, we're going to take our time and let the blade do the work over at the scroll saw, and the beautiful image will emerge out of our piece of material we are going to be scrolling. The design I picked out is from a very, very old magazine. I've got the original pattern photocopied and attached to our material with clear packing tape, and the pattern in question comes from Scroll Saw Workshop. This was way before it was called Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts Magazine by Fox Travel Publishing, just Scroll Saw Workshop. So spring 2004, issue 14, so very early in the archives. I remember getting this magazine and looking fondly at it. I remember making one of these flower pot kits for my grandmother to paint because she liked having plants and little things to set around the house like this. I cut out this a long time ago and never finished it, the tropical flamingos, but a lot of fond memories with this magazine. But the article that we need to focus on is on page 76, and here you see it says Native American portrait. A high gloss finish livens this classic Old West image. So really, really neat here. You can see the beautiful and intricate details I was talking about. You can see the Native American warrior in profile there, and it looks like they used a piece of rustic live edge material here. I do not have that, sadly. I'm going to be using a piece of standard material to cut the project out of. But on the following page you have a nice little article on how to go about making it, and I want to thank Tom Mullen, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, for the beautiful design. Again, the pattern is in the full-size pattern pull-out section, and here you see it. Thankful to still have this with that older magazine, and I've got it photocopied to full size and attached to our piece of basic 3/4 inch pine shelving board with clear packing tape. You can see all of the intricate details better here. I love how it's got his hair kind of like blowing in the breeze. It's got the classic Native American feather on it. Of course, you can tell that I am representing the Native American ancestry and heritage I have on my mom's side of the family. We do have Cherokee on my mom's side of the family, and I am proud of that heritage, and I love to represent it whenever possible. Now, I made this project way back when this magazine first came out. I believe I said it was 2004, but here is the original one I made way back then on the Delta 16-inch scroll saw. So we're going to be able to compare and contrast and look at an older project to see how well the skills have progressed out here in the workshop, to see how the new one will finish up. And this one was made out of 3/4 inch pine shelving board as well. That's why I wanted to make the new one out of it as well, just to see how it would finish up. And I didn't even know how to clear coat anything then. The only thing I did was stained it, painted the backer board a nice beige color, and I put it together with brad nails and a hanger here. But it says, "To Mom from me, 2004. So just take that into account. At the time of this video's recording, I am 37 years of age, so just to go all the way back to 2004, you can see how young I was and inexperienced with a lot of things over at the scroll saw. You can see here with some of the pilot holes, they kind of broke out when I was drilling them over at the drill press. So I'm very eager and keen to make this project over again. This used to be in the family, or mine and my mom's living room when I was growing up, and she had a lot of Native American pieces, ceramics that she had hand painted, and they were beautiful works of art. And when she took all that down to make way for the beach and tropical stuff that we are now decorating with, she told me to take this and put it on the scroll saw display wall, because at the time there wasn't a lot of pieces on the display wall. But again, in reality, this piece is actually hers, but we are going to make an additional one so we can have our copy, so to speak, out here in the workshop. And since everything is pretty much prepped and prepared, let's move the camera over to the workbench and take the Seiko scroller's drill and drill all the pilot holes so we can start making some sawdust over at the Rikon scroll saw. And over here on the workbench, we're going to take the Seiko scroller's drill and a tiny drill bit and drill out all of the pilot holes for internal cutting. And you'll note that I have a backer board behind the scroll saw work to prevent blowout of the pilot holes on the reverse side. And there is several pilot holes on this project, but once we get over to the Rikon scroll saw and begin scrolling, we will get through all of them to reveal the beautiful detail of the Native American portrait. For all of the scrolling on this project, I'll be using a number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through the material exceptionally well with minimal chip out. As I said at the beginning of the video, I made this project well over 20 years ago, and at the time it was one of my most probably advanced patterns that I had made, and I always wanted to come back and make it again since I had gotten back into scroll saw woodworking, just to see how far the skills have progressed. As always, beginning with some of those central details and working our way outwards, taking our time and letting the blade do the work. And also, when you're doing a highly detailed project like this, take into account the type of material you are using. Of course, I am using basic 3/4 inch pine shelving board here to make and bring the project to life, and that material can chip away or break if you get highly detailed pieces, so I am blending some of the internal cuts together where it will allow, so I can have all of that detail represented. Hopefully that makes sense. But here at the close-up views, you can really see how tedious some of these cuts are. And here I am with the chest mount, and this time I am trying with the GoPro, and you are basically seeing what I see during the entire scrolling process. If you guys would like to try this pattern, it's available in a very old issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing, way back when it was just called Scroll Saw Workshop. But as I was cutting this project out, I remembered making it originally on a small Delta 16-inch scroll saw and making it for my mom to go with her Native American collection. Again, we are proud of our Native American ancestry. But we are now doing the final couple internal cuts. But not all of the scrolling will be done on the project entirely. I'll come back to the scroll saw a couple more times. But now over at the Rikon table saw, I'll cut the project down to its final dimensions, and I will turn the table saw off and let the blade stop before I grab that piece, and then I turned it back on. Just with the time-lapse portion, you sometimes do not see that the blade stopped before reaching over. And now I'm just taking a can here, and I'm tracing a half circle for the corners. And again, as I said, we'll be going back to the scroll saw to cut them out. And if you all like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel, and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. But now I can peel the pattern away, and we'll get our first glimpse of the finished design. Very beautiful detail. And now it'll be time to sand very, very carefully with 180 grit Klingspor Woodworking Shop sandpaper and the vibrating palm sander, using very small circular motions and very light pressure. I'll sand the front and back side of the piece and get it nice and buttery smooth. And then I'll take my little tool and blow out all of the excess sawdust, and we'll stain everything with a very light shade of Minwax wood stain. This is Golden Pecan, and I like it because it does not mask the grain textures of the pine material we are using. I love when the natural grains are able to shine through. But I set it aside to dry, and we spray painted a scrap piece of 1/4 inch material with a nice natural burgundy color. And when both of the pieces were dry to the touch, it was time to glue them together. And for the glue up, after getting some spring clamps out of the bucket there, I used medium grade CA glue and activator from Klingspor Woodworking Shop. And even though it basically dries and bonds instantly, I still allow 5 minutes or so to make sure that the glue has completely dried and cured. But after removing the clamps, we can head over to the Rikon scroll saw for the final time to do the final flush trim. And we are still using that same number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade. But now all the scroll work will be done, and I'll quickly do some flush sanding over at the rigid belt sander, just getting everything nice and smooth. And I'll use a sponge sander here to just quickly go around the edges, and we'll stain the perimeter and the back, and then I can pack away all of the staining supplies. But after this dries, it'll be ready for a finish, and for a finish I used a few coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss, and it really brought out the grain textures of the 3/4 inch pine we used for the Native American portrait. When it dried, our project was complete. And here we have the completed Native American portrait, cut out completely from start to finish over at the Rikon scroll saw, and it finished up beautifully and spectacularly with some beautiful and intricate and very fragile details. Really, really cool. I want to once again thank Mr. Tom Mullane, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, for the beautiful design featured in an older issue of Scroll Saw Workshop magazine, well before it was Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine. It took me a little over an hour and a half to scroll the project out completely from start to finish. You need to, of course, take your time and let the blade do the work and be as loyal as you can be to the cut line, because the hair pieces end up being very delicate to cut out. Some of them are very fragile once they are cut out, and you could potentially chip or break them away. That is why I prefer to sand projects like this, and 99% of scroll saw projects I make with a vibrating palm sander as opposed to a more aggressive orbital spinning sander. You wouldn't want that to catch none of the details and break them away, and then you'd have to spend time trying to repair it. But I took my time, I let the blade do the work, and I was as loyal as I could be to the cut line, and I hope that the results speak for themselves here at the end of the video. Again, on my mom's side of the family, we do have Native American heritage and ancestry, and I'm proud to show those roots off. I've done some previous Native American projects over here on the channel. If you would like to go back and see those videos, just search my name and put Native American and they should pop up. But I'm glad to make this one over and add it to the collection. And speaking of making over, remember at the beginning of the video I showed you the original one I made when the magazine first came out that I'll show you again way back in 2004. And the reason this one here is facing a different direction was because I used the heat transfer method with basically a small little branding iron to transfer the pattern onto the material, so it ended up being a mirror image. But this is properly how it was supposed to be cut out. But you can see from 2004, when I didn't really know what I was doing and I was only 16 years of age, I added it up before I began filming the outro here, so 16 years of age to all the way now to 2026, where I am 37 years of age. Hopefully you can see that the techniques and the results have improved, and I still, even back in 2004 to now to 2026, still love using a scroll saw. I feel like it's the most therapeutic tool to use out in the workshop, and you can just zone out and make beautiful and creative art like this. Once all of the scrolling was done with number 5 Ultra Reverse Tooth blades, we sanded everything up nice and smooth with Klingspor Woodworking Shop sandpaper, again in the vibrating palm sander. And then I stained the scroll work with a very light Minwax wood stain to still allow the natural grain textures of the 3/4 inch pine to shine through. This is just basic off the rack 3/4 inch pine shelving board, crew. This is not anything exotic or, you know, expensive. The whole 8-foot board, 3/4 inch thick, was only $10. That's US currency. So again, I hope the results speak for themselves if you just work with the material when cutting out the details. And again, I want to reiterate, taking your time. But after I stained it and hung it on a hook in front of a fan to accelerate drying time, I spray painted the backer board, which is just a thin piece of the traditional 1/4 inch material we use for scroll saw projects, a nice burgundy color. I felt that was an appropriate color for Native Americans because they didn't use like bright or vibrant colors. They used like the dyes and berries and stuff like that, you know, out on the trail and on the prairie and everything in the wild western days. So I think the burgundy really complements the subject matter of the portrait. And then once that was dry, we glued them together. We went back to the scroll saw and flush trimmed everything, and then I went over to the rigid belt sander and I really gave it a nice flush sanding all the way around the perimeter. And then we restained the borders and the back here, and that just helps simulate that this is one individual piece of wood as opposed to two pieces that are glued together, a thicker and thin piece. Now in the magazine here, I'm glancing down at it, it does suggest using 1/4 or 1/2 inch material to cut the project out of, but I opted for 3/4 inch material because that's what I made the original one, and I like that depth that it shows going to the backer board and the shadows that it creates. And it did the same thing in this one here. I used a lighter shade of paint, a nice beige color. Again, that's a more natural rustic color for the backer board before I stained it. And again, I didn't even clear cut this or use any glue. I just used little brad nails to hold the backer board in place back then. Again, 16 years of age, I didn't really know what to do. I knew how to cut it, the scroll saw, thanks to my grandfather's guidance. He was out in the workshop when I cut this one back, so it's a very sentimental piece, and ultimately I give it to my mom for either her birthday or Christmas, I can't remember. But again, it made its way back out into the workshop. But now I can give that one back to her and she can pack it away with her Native American ceramics and art that she had displayed in the living room, and I can proudly display this one out in the workshop. I'll put a hanger on the back, of course. I feel like you could make this project in a variety of ways. You could of course stack them out of thin material and make multiples at once. You could of course not use a backer board and use the thicker material like I have here, and you could go in and put colored epoxies or resins to give it a pseudo-typed stained glass appearance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So options and versatility for each and every scroll saw project and pattern you come across. But if you have Native American ancestry, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd be happy to strike up a conversation with you all about that, because again, I'm very proud and humbled by my ancestry and the roots that go back in time. But once again, this pattern was featured in a very old issue of Scroll Saw Workshop. Spring 2004, issue 14, and they're well over 100 issues now, so you can tell how old this magazine is. Again, I got it when I was 16 years of age at the local bookstore. It's even got the old Hawk scroll saws advertised on the back of it. But the pattern is featured in the full-size pattern pull-out section, along with all the other full-size patterns that are featured here. So I'm thankful that I still have this magazine and the full-size patterns on hand to go back like we have in today's video and remake the projects. And if you do not have this pattern and you cannot source it, remember, Fox Chapel Publishing offers those archival CDs with back issues on it from the early days, and I'm thankful to also have those on hand. But I was happy to go down memory lane and remake a project just to see how far the skills have progressed over the years out here in the workshop. And I hope in today's video you all enjoyed following along and hopefully picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit along the way. That's going to be about all for this one, crew. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, crew, and remember, if I can make it or do it, so can you all. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you all real soon.